for the independent India. So we have got independence on 1947, August 15th, but we have adopted and implemented the present constitution of India from the date of 26th January of 1950. So we have made many efforts to frame this lengthy and strongest constitution entire the world. So basically we have to know the meaning of the constitution. So the constitution is a body of fundamental principles according to which a state is constituted or governed. So which means the constitution is the draft is made for the better administration, for the sake of better administration to enter the state. So the constitution is fundamental law of land which fulfills aspirations and goals of a society. So it is an overreaching. Please mute your. Mute, mute. Okay, fine. So the constitution is overarching framework within which pursues individual aspirations, goals, and freedoms. So, as of our Constitution of India also makes us free to speech, freedom of in case of social, economy, and also freedom of liberty. We have social freedom, economic, and political freedom also got from the Constitution of India. So the present Constitution is a living document which grows and evolves according to the needs and also aspirations of the changing society through such instructions as like amendments of the Constitution, judicial interpretations, and judgments, conventions, statutes, and many other things also impacting our constitution. So if we see the significance of the constitution, it gives us political framework and distributes decision making powers also, and also the constitution exhibits our conflicts, aspirations, ideals, and national struggle. So the constitution also gives one a moral identity, because if there is no constitution, the this type of democratic administration will not exist here. So if we are having this type of constitution, we are enjoying our personal freedom and equality among others in the society. So it creates, reflects, and accords an Indian identity to the individuals in the society. So if we see the objective of our constitution to enable the government to fulfill the aspirations of a society, to create conditions for a just society. So to specify who has the power to make decisions in a society, it decides how the government will be constituted. So as if we see, our present governments also created according to the Constitution of India. So if we see, the union government or our state government are all created according to the Constitution of India. We are conducting elections for particular tenure, that is 5 years. So we are participating in the elections. We are electing our representatives, and after elections, we are making a government with the principle of majority. So and also constitution provide us a set of rules that allow for minimal coordination amongst members of the society. So to set some limits on what a government can impose on its citizens, because sometimes there are restrictions also there in the form of implementation of the constitution and its rules. So if we see, the basic idea of this constitution has been came from the Magna Carta, which is held in 1215 of King John of England, and English Bill of Rights, also one of the first constitutions, written constitutions in the world. So if we see, every constitution has its own objectives and own features, because every state is different from each other state, because their territorial backgrounds also different, their administrative systems also different, their environmental situations also different from each other. So the boundaries, the everything is different from each state to another. So that's what every state has its own constitution created for the sake of their administrations. That's what India also created this constitution, and consulted many other constitutions and borrowed so many things from other constitutions, and selected only few of them and kept under our constitution. So if we see the historical evolution of our Indian constitution, these principles of were forged during the long freedom struggle, because we have been ruled by British Empire around 200 years. So after that only we have done independence struggle, and we have made many movements. After that only we have got independence. Later on, we created our Constitution of India. So in the making of the Constitution of India, we have elected a constant assembly to write a better constitution for the India. So the constant assembly was giving concrete shape and form to the principles it had inherited from the nationalist movement. Perhaps the best summary of the principles that the nationalist movement brought to the constant assembly is the objectives resolution. So it's moved by the Jawaharlal Nehru in 1946. So this resolution is the aspirations and values behind the constitution. So if we see, many British government acts also impacted our present constitution of India, because many things, many objectives, many items has been borrowed from the previous British government Indian acts, like such as Regulating Act of 1773, Pitt's India Act of 1784, Chartered Acts like 1813, 1833, and also 1853, and also Government of India Act 1858 also impacted. Indian Councils Acts such as 1861, 1892, and 1909 Indian Councils Act, and also known as Minto-Morley reforms. So and later on, Government of India Act 1919, it is also known as Montague-Chelmsford reforms, also influenced our constitution. And also later, many incidents, many national movement incidents also impacted in the creation of our present constitution of India. And also, if we see, the majority of the objectives, majority of the instructions has been borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935. So before British leaving India, they have implemented this Government of India Act 1935, and also this act is very important for the framing of our present Constitution of India. So later, Indian Independence Act of 1947 also created. So in this act, India declared as an independent and sovereign state from the British Empire. So with this effect of this act only, the partition of India made into two dominions, as we know. One is India and another one is Pakistan. So if we see, the constant assembly is there for the making of the Constitution of India. So the idea of Constant Assembly of India was put forward by the first time by M.N. Roy in 1934. So later, Indian National Congress first time officially demanded a Constituent Assembly to frame the Constitution of India in 1935. So later, British government also accepted the demand for the first time in August Offer in 1940. So later, many discussions, many debates, constitutional debates has been made uh, uh, in the cause of how to frame, how to make constitution, how to write constitution, and which items has to insert in the document. So many discussions has been held by the Constituent Assembly. So this Constituent Assembly was constituted under the scheme formulated by the Cabinet Mission Plan 1946. In this Cabinet Mission Plan is sent by the Queen Victoria in the name of British Empire. So the members are Lawrence, Cripps, Alexander. So according to the Cabinet Mission Plan, the elections has held for the Constituent Assembly. So this Constituent Assembly is there to write the Constitution of India, independent India. So if we see, the Constituent Assembly was with the total membership of 389. So I will clarify your doubts after the class. So Constituent Assembly is constituted with 389 members. So from this 389, the 296 members are from the British India, which means British ruled Indian provinces, and also there are 93 princely states also there. Princely states means they are ruled by the Indian prince, and also they are associated with British Empire. So, and also some seats allotted in the proportion to their respective population, one seat for minorities also, like three principal communities like Muslims, Sikhs, and general also. So these Constituent Assembly was partly elected, which means provincial legislative assembly, and partially nominated. So nominated means here the representatives of princely states. So the members were to be indirectly elected by the members of provincial assemblies, who themselves were elected on the limited franchise. So if we see, the present election system is in a democratic manner. Everyone, most of the elections are directly based elections. So most of the elections, like if you see MLAs, local bodies, or MP for Lok Sabha, and for assemblies also in direct method only. So for this, Constituent Assembly is different from the present general elections. So here, if if we see, the Constituent Assembly in their tenure, entire tenure, had made 11 sessions over 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. So final session was held in January 24th of 1950. It, however, continued as the Provincial Parliament of India from January 26, 1950, till the formation of new parliament after the first general elections, which is held in between 1951 and 1952. So if we see the working of the Constituent Assembly, the Constituent Assembly first meeting was held in December 9th of 1946 and attended by 211 members. So temporary president of the Constituent Assembly is Sachidananda Sinha, because he is the oldest member in the Constituent Assembly. So was elected as following the French practice. So later, the Dr. Babu Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of Constituent Assembly. So objective resolutions moved on December 13th of 1946 by Jawaharlal Nehru. So representatives of other princely states who had stayed away from the Constituent Assembly gradually joined. Members of the Muslim League from Indian Dominion also entered the assembly after the acceptance of Mountbatten Plan of Partition. So this Mountbatten Plan of Partition is the uh, reason for the partition of India into two dominions, which is India and Pakistan. So if we see, there are several committees also there, like major committees. If we see, Union Powers Committee headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Union Constitution Committee Jawaharlal Nehru, and also we have to discuss about the important committee, that is drafting committee. Drafting committee is headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So the drafting committee is the one which is played major role in the making of the Constitution of India. So it was this committee entrusted with the task of preparing a draft of the new Constitution. So if you see, this committee is made by the 7 members to set up on August 29th of 1947. So if you see, the members of this Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is the chairperson of this drafting committee, and other members are Gopalaswamy Iyengar, Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, K.M. Munshi, Syed Muhammad Shadullah, Madhava Rao. He replaced B.L. Mittar, who resigned due to ill health, and T. Krishnamachari. He is also replaced D.P. Kaitan, who died in 1948. So the drafting committee, after taking into consideration the proposals of various committees, prepared the first draft of the Constitution of India, which was published in February of 1948. So these drafting committee is made sat only for 141 days to prepare and discuss many issues, many objectives to introduce into the manual draft of the Constitution of India. So after making of this draft, assembly was made with a fully sovereign body, free to abrogate or after any law. So two separate functions were assigned to the assembly, performed on separate days, like legislative body chaired by G.V. Maulankar and constant body chaired by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So the first parliament of the free India, these two functions continued till November 26th of 1949. So after withdrawal of Muslim League members, total strength came down to 299 as against 389 under the cabinet mission plan. So if we see, the many criticisms also there on this making of this constitution, but we have borrowed many things. We consulted more than 60 plus countries' constitutions. So the drafting committee of Constituent Assembly borrowed constitution, referred constitution, around 60 plus other constitutions. So majority of the objectives has been borrowed from the sources, borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935, and many major constitutions such as American Constitution, French, Russia, and also British Constitution also, we have borrowed many things. So blend of rigidity, which means we have amendment system with a blended system. So sometimes we can amend easily, and sometimes we cannot amend so easily. So there is amendment systems are 3 types of amendment systems are there. We will discuss about this amendment system in a later class. So after making this Constitution of India, so India became as federal system with unitary bias, which means quasi-federal or cooperative federalism. So, and also many provisions also borrowed from the many constitutions. So we have drafted and we have implemented, and implemented from the 26th January of 1950 50 with 395 original articles. So at the time of implementation of this constitution, there are only 10 schedules. After amendments of 73rd and 74th, presently we are having 12 schedules. So we have the separation of power doctrine also we are having. So if we see the major salient features of the Constitution of India, there are several salient features are there, like lengthiest constitution among the world, because the Indian Constitution is one of the lengthiest detailed constitution in the world, because we have borrowed so many things from other constitutions. As we discussed, we have approached 60 plus other constitutions among the world. So later on we are amending. Till now we are amended more than 100 times. We have amended our present constitution of India. So presently we are having, if we see, there are only original articles number is 395, but we are added so many articles into the constitution, into the in the name of sub articles. So there are presently there are 12 schedules and 450 plus articles are there in our constitution. So the Indian constitution has incorporated various articles by taking inspiration the various constitutions around the world. So if, as we discussed, we have borrowed many things from the other constitutions. Like if you see the philosophical sections of the constitutions, one is fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy are based on the American and Irish constitutions. So fundamental rights are borrowed from the America, and directive principles borrowed from the Irish constitution, and fundamental duties from the Russian constitution, and constitutional amendment system from the South Africa, and many other things also borrowed from the several constitutions. So if you see, the powers has been divided into between the union and states. So as we discussed, the constitutional amendment system is blend of rigidity and flexibility. So if you see, the article 368 of the Constitution of India provides the two types of amendments. So amendment through a special majority and amendments through a simple majority. If we see a special majority, 2/3 majority of the members of each house and voting, and majority 50% of the total membership of each house, and some other provisions can be amended by a special majority of the parliament with the ratification of the half of the states. So that is difference from the simple majority. Simple majority means only 2/3 majority of present sitting members of the parliament. So special majority means with 2/3 majority of parliament, and with addition to the ratification by the states assemblies. So for the special majority, the approval of state assemblies also needed. So the federal system with a unitary bias means we are having unitary features, and at the same time we are having federal features, because as we written in our constitution, federal features like the powers between the union and states has been divided into the three lists. One is a union list, a state list, and concurrent list. So the supremacy of the constitution is always protected, and also the division of powers is not equal. The center has more powers than the state, which is evident from the fact that the union list contains more matters than the state list. So the federations like United States of America have the right to frame their own constitution, which is not possible in India, as the entire country follows a single constitution. So there is a single system of courts that enforces both central and state laws. Here there is no equal representation of states in the House of Parliament, which is not the same like federations in USA. So And also we are having parliamentary form of government. It is also one of the essential important feature of the constitution. So the constitution makers preferred a parliamentary system of government. Our newly formed democracy could not afford any confrontations between the executive and the legislature. So the council of ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, and also the same is true of the relationship between the governors and council of ministers in the states. So, and also we are having integrated and independent judiciary system, because the judiciary is ensures the proper functioning of the constitution and the enforcement of various provisions of the constitution. So the constitution makers ensured that the judiciary has to be independent and hence unbiased. So there are various provisions in the constitution that ensure the independence of the judiciary. The appointment of judges is independent and there is no involvement of any executive authorities. So the tenure of judges also secured. The removal of judges from their tenures must be also be on the constitutional provisions. So if we see, we are having one of the most important feature, that is fundamental rights. So the Indian constitution guarantees 6 fundamental rights. So these fundamental rights borrowed from the American constitution. At the time of implementation of our constitution, there are almost 7 fundamental rights are there, but after 44th constitutional amendment act, we have removed 7th fundamental right, that is right to property, has been removed from the list and kept as a legal act under the article 300 subclass A. So presently we are having 6 fundamental rights. One is right to equality, which is explains from the article 14 to 18, and right to freedom from article 19 to 22, right against exploitation article 23 and 24, and right to freedom of religion from article 25 to 28, and cultural and educational rights from article 29 and 30, and the last one is right to constitutional remedies, which is explains under article 32. So article 32 is the important for the protection of these fundamental rights. So in this article we have inserted 5 types of writs are there, like habeas corpus, mandamus, quo warranto, certiorari, prohibition. So these writs are there for the protection of these fundamental rights. So the directive principles of state policy is one of the important salient feature for the Constitution of India. So these principles are kept under part 4 of the Constitution from the article 36 to 51. So see, these directive principles of state policy has been borrowed from the Irish Constitution, and it is the duty of every state to apply these principles while making any new legislation. So the directive principles of state policy is similar to the instrument of instructions that is in the Government of India Act 1935. So they are basically instructions only. So if we see, there is a difference between fundamental rights and directive principles. So fundamental rights are protected by the judiciary, but here the directive principles are not. So because there is no provision for the protection of these directive principles. So that's what we are claiming, that these directive principles are only the instructions based. So they are basically instructions to the legislature, so which means all the states and union government also follow these directive principles in the framing of any new legislation or any government order. So almost all governments will follow these principles. So we are also having fundamental duties. So at the time of implementation of constitution, there are no fundamental duties, but later on in 1976, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act inserted 10 fundamental duties, and these fundamental duties are borrowed from the Soviet Russia, and the Swaran Singh Committee is there for this insertion of these fundamental duties to our constitution. So these fundamental duties are kept under part 4 subclass A in the article 51 subclass A of constitution. So the Swaran Singh Committee was formed in 1976 after the internal emergency of 1975, which recommended and adding a list of fundamental duties which every citizen of India should abide by these principles. So the at present time we are having 11 fundamental duties. In 2002 we are added one more fundamental duty, that is about right to education. So the 11 fundamental duties act as a moral obligation on every citizen of India, and these fundamental duties also not justiciable in nature. If you see, only fundamental rights are justiciable in nature because they are protected by the judiciary. The directive principles and fundamental duties are non-justiciable, so there is no protection for these two principles. So one cannot move to court if someone not obeying their duty as a citizen of India. So the new part 4 subclass A with article 51 subclass A was added to the Constitution of India, and it was inspired by the Constitution of Soviet Russia. So, and also we are having principles like secular principle, which means the Constitution of India stands for a secular. So secular, which gives equal importance to the all religions. So secular means, according to the Constitution of India, there is no official religion for the government or state. So the state gives equal importance to the all religions. So if we see, there are majority of the people belongs to the Hindu religion, but we are not providing any official importance to the Hindu. So all the religions, including all the minorities, also we are giving equal importance in the all matters. So it also does not uphold any particular religion as the official state religion. So the Western concept of secularism cannot a complete separation between religion and the state. So this concept is inapplicable to the Indian situation where the society is multi-religious. So the Indian Constitution embodies the positive concept of secularism. So if you see, the government of India giving equal respect to the all religions and protecting all religions equally according to the Constitution of India. So we have mentioned in Article 25 to 28 in fundamental rights, right to freedom of religion. So, and also we are having one important feature, that is universal adult franchise. So the concept of universal adult franchise or adult suffrage allows every citizen of India who is above 18 years old the right to vote in democratic elections. So any adult who is eligible to vote should not be discriminated against on the basis of gender, caste, religion, or etc. So this provision was added in the 61st Constitutional Amendment, which is also known as the Constitution Act 1988, which is changed the voting age from the 21 to 18 years. So before that, the minimum voting age is 21 years. After this 61st Constitutional Amendment Act, we are reduced the age from the 21 to 18 years. So Article 326 of the Indian Constitution guarantees this universal adult franchise or right to vote. And also we are having single citizenship. Single citizenship means we are having 29 states, but we are having only one citizenship. If we see, the United States of America has having dual citizenship. There are 50 plus 1, 51 states are there. They are having union means universal citizenship, which means dual citizenship. So 51 states are having individual citizenships, and also they are belonging to United States of America. That is common for all the citizens who are living in that states. But here in India, there is a difference. So we are having only single citizenship. So despite the fact that the Indian constitution is federal and envisions a dual polity, center and state, it only provides for the one citizenship, namely Indian citizenship. So in India, all citizens, regardless of the state of birth or residents, enjoy the same political and civil rights of citizenship across the country, and no distinction is made between them. So, despite the constitutional guarantee for single citizenship and equal rights for all citizens, India has been sectarian riots, class battles, caste warfare, language confrontations, and ethnic problems. So this indicates that the constitution long held objective of creating a cohesive integrated Indian country has not been completely released. So it is also one of the important salient feature for the Indian constitution. So, and also we are having rule of law, which means according to this principle, people are ruled by the law, but not by the men. So, but that is the basic truism that no man is infallible. So, the more important is the meaning that law is the sovereign in democracy. So, the chief ingredient of law is custom, which is nothing but the habitual practices and beliefs of common people over a long years. So, in the final analysis, the rule of law means the sovereignty of the common man collective wisdom. So, the Constitution of India incorporated the principle in the part 3, and in order to provide meaning to Article 14, so all are equal before the law and all enjoy equal protection of law. So, promotion of local adalats and the venture of Supreme Court known as public interest litigation have been implemented. Also, as per today's law of the land, any litigant can appeal to the presiding judicial authority to argue the case by himself or seek legal assistance with the help of the judiciary. So, this is the rule of law. And also, we are having independent bodies also there, like the Indian constitution not only provides for the legislative, executive, judicial organs of the government, but also establishes certain independent bodies. There are envisaged by the constitution as the bulwarks of the democratic system of government of India. So there are constitutional committees are there, constitutional organizations are there, like if you see, there are national institutions are there for the protection of these objectives of our Constitution of India, like Human Rights Commission is there, and National Commission for Scheduled Castes, Scheduled Tribes, backward classes, Minority Commission is also there. And also we are having emergency powers. Emergency power means if there is problems in case of emergency caused by war or external aggression or armed rebellion or emergency arising out of the failure of constitutional machinery in the states and financial crisis, if it is there, we are implementing 3 types of national emergencies are there. One is national emergency under Article 352, and another one is president's rule, which is mentioned in Article 356, and Another one is financial emergency under Article 360. So during the emergency period, the central government becomes all powerful and states goes into total control of the union government. So this kind of transformation of the political system from federal during normal times, unitary during um, emergency. So is a unique feature of Indian constitution, as we discussed, quasi-federal system. So in normal times, it acts as federal system. In case of emergency, the entire administration, entire powers of the states also um, goes into the hands of union government. So that's what we are calling at the time of emergency. It is behave like a unitary government. So, and also one more feature after the um, implementation of 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, we are having three-tier government system. So originally, Indian Constitution provided for a dual polity, contained provisions with regard to the organization powers of the center and states. Later, we are divided into three-tier system. Three-tier system means three types of governments are there, like union government, state government, and local governments. In local governments, there are two different local bodies are there. One is Panchayat Raj and another one is municipalities. So, as we discussed, independent bodies, Election Commission, Union Public Service Commission, Comptroller and Auditor General, Finance Commission also there. So, the Constitution establishes these type of autonomous bodies for the better administration by the legislature and executive and judicial parts of the government, both the central and the state levels. So the Indian constitutions opens with a preamble. So in that preamble, we have mentioned about all the objectives and all the goals of the Constitution of India. So if we see majority of the goals, and if we see, if we amend the Constitution, we cannot change the basic structure of the Constitution. So basic structure of the preamble also. So if we see the philosophy of the Constitution, the main principles of the resolution were India is to be independent, sovereign republic. If you see the preamble also, we have mentioned that India is independent, sovereign republic, and secular socialist state. So that is to be a democratic union with equal level of self-government in all the constant parts. So if we see, we are adapted secular formula to the Indian Constitution. We have borrowed modern form of democracy from the West. Under this system, democracy means the periodic responsibilities of the government to go to the people. For this purpose, elections have been held every 5 years to elect government by the people. So, however, democracy covers even the economic, social aspects of life. And also, we have borrowed socialism is not new to the India. Vedanta's philosophy has socialism in it. The national struggle for freedom had the same. Also, in view, Jawaharlal Nehru referred to himself as a socialist man. So, and Republican. So, and also we have mixed economy formula. So coexistence of salient features of our ideology, coexistence of manifested itself through a mixed system of economy. So in this system, we have allowed both the private and public sectors on the economy to work simultaneously. So large scale and essential industries have been put in the public sector, and also the government's encouraging private sector to invest in the government sectors. So, and also so Indian Constitution, after inserting these important objectives into the Constitution of India, India Constitution is a dynamic, living document designed to meet the aspirations of the people and is an aspiration for the rest of the emerging democracies of the third world. Third world means after the Second World War, those who are got independence called it as third world countries. So India is also one of the third world nation only. So like many nations, so most of the members in United Nations organizations at present 194 members are there now. In that total number, around two-third members of United Nations are got independence after the Second World War only. So majority of the nations in the United Nations organizations are third world nations, so third world countries. If you see, the Indian Constitution begins with the preamble. The preamble contains the ideals, objectives, and basic principles of the Constitution. So the salient features of the Constitution have evolved directly and indirectly from these objectives which flow from the preamble. So as we discussed in today's class, the majority of the sources, majority of the objectives has been borrowed from the many other constitutions and British government India acts. So the our constitution has adopted the best features of the most of the major constitutions of the world as per the needs of our country. So, though borrowed from almost every constitution in the world, we have approached the Constitution of India has several salient features that distinguish it from the constitutions of the other countries. So, we are having mixed objectives, mixed features from the other constitutions. So, around majority of 18 major features of constitution and comprehensively we have discussed in today's class. So the basic structure of our constitution is always been there. So every time we are amending our constitution, but we are not neglecting, we are not neglecting this basic structure formula. So if you see through the Indian constitution borrowed from almost every constitution of world, impacted, influenced our constitution framers to make the constitution lengthy and rigid constitution. So if you see the blend of rigidity and flexibility, as we discussed, if we want to change, if we want to amend the Constitution of India, so it is not so easily. There is need of majority of the parliament and ratification of the states also has to be participated in the constitutional amendment process. In normal laws, in normal constitutional amendment system, the parliament can make changes, but they have to follow the principle of basic structure formula. So, and also these salient features of the constitution is important for the constitution, and also as part of our syllabus also it is important for the our syllabus. So in case these features is not there, so in case of not implementing by the governments, we can approach the judiciary system, because the judiciary is one of the independent and it has the power of independence to protect the constitution. So that's what we call it as Supreme Court is the guardian of the Indian constitution. So if the government neglect or government break the rules and objectives of the constitution of India, then the Supreme Court will notice and the Supreme Court give certain orders to withdraw the changes from their amendment or acts. So that's what we are given importance to the independence judiciary system. to protect the constitution for the protection of people liberties. So that's what Indian judiciary has the power of judicial review, uh, to review the government orders, legislations made by the both state and union governments. So if they follow, they will accept. If they not follow, they will reject, or they can suggest changes into that particular legislation. So that's what the basic structure doctrine is there to understand the supremacy of the constitution, republic, democratic form of government, federalism, secularism, separation of powers, judicial review, sovereignty, and integrity of the country, basic freedoms guarantees under the part 3 of the constitution, as we discussed as fundamental rights, are considered as integral part of the basic structure of the constitution. So the Supreme Court observed that parliament can amend any part of the constitution except the basic structure. So this is the basic structure formula. So is there any doubts from today's lesson?
No doubt, sir.
Okay, thank you. Tomorrow at same time we will meet again. Thank you for your participation. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. I am concluding the session. You have another classes also now. Join there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.